helmet, wearing a press jacket. Still, she was shot twice by an Israeli sniper. She was killed. Another colleague of hers was actually shot in the back, survived. Still, though, as we know, Yusuf, no consequences. So where does that lack of accountability leave you doing your work when you're out in the field?
Well, we know we are not safe. I reported on the first Israeli war on Gaza, the second war, so I know how it feels. We did not feel that we are safe. We know that Israel has got a long black record of killing Palestinians, even during times of peace along the Gaza border, when Palestinians were marching peacefully along the fence, and a number of Palestinians killed, paramedics, journalists. We know due to the impunity that Israel enjoys, it has never been held accountable for those human rights violations, for those crimes. Although my colleagues were wearing the helmet, the vest, but we know that we could be a target. My colleagues in Gaza, they are telling me that they are unable to even approach areas of the areas that was bombarded or reach areas along the fence because they will be a target. We know that now they are unable to charge their mobile phones to be with you guys. They work in very difficult circumstances, very dangerous circumstances. There is an attempt by Israel to silence the Palestinians. Palestinians, as we know, journalists, as we know, they are the voice of the voiceless. And if they come under fire, this means where people, the audience, will not know what's going on the ground.
Yusuf, have you felt personally vulnerable that you might actually even be targeted, not accidentally, and to say when you're covering anything to do with the Israeli-Palestine conflict in the field?
From our previous experiences, Israelis, they know who are present. They know they have the latest technology, so they can identify who's this person. Anyone, is worried about being targeted. Myself, my colleagues, we know what happened to Shireen Abu Akleh. I met Shireen in Gaza, and we know that until now there is no accountability. During the last war on Gaza, we know that tower that was hosting Al Jazeera was bombarded. So we could be a target. But as a British Palestinian, although we are foreign nationals, we carry citizenship of a foreign country, but that is still not going to protect us. Maybe the Israelis, they have the binoculars, they have the technology, they can identify who's a foreign journalist, who's a local journalist. And unfortunately, if a foreign journalist is present, then they are less likely to be targeted.
Right. Sharif, what's even the incentive to avoid letting journalists get caught in the crossfire? If you hear, former Prime Minister of Israel, Naftali Bennett, say Israeli soldiers should not be prosecuted when civilians are not killed deliberately. Very difficult to ever prove. It's a he said, she said, if at best. Does that just give them full impunity?
Well, the fact is none of those involved in the killing of Shireen Abu Akleh and 20 journalists that we've recorded have been held accountable, charged, including the 3 that we at the committee categorized as murder. And that includes Shireen Abu Akleh and the 2 journalists who were shot and killed in 2018 by the Israeli army, Yasser Murtaga and Mahmoud Abu Hussein. And the fact is, the Israeli army investigations are basically a black hole. We hear that they will do an investigation and we never hear anything afterwards. And this is why we don't just call for Israel to do its investigation. We support international investigation in Shireen Abu Akleh and the murder cases. And we, in the case of Assam Abdullah, have called for an immediate investigation from the Israeli government and also supported the Lebanese government complaint to the UN to do their own investigation. It does matter, though, how much Israel cares about those cases based on the passport or the nationalities of those killed. They might try to justify it if they feel pressure from the international community about the case.
Nabi, let me ask you, if knowing your vulnerability, specifically in this conflict, Do you ever feel, hopefully Nabi can hear me, do you ever feel that you are holding back on what you write and what you say because it could put you in danger in the field? It could make you a target.
I mean, that's a very good question. I don't think that I sort of pull my punches when it comes to coverage. At least I would like to think that I don't. But of course, it should be said that it's also a matter of what you are willing to do in the field with the story. And in some places,
you know what,
that
Nabi, hold on one second. Just hold that thought. Hold that thought. We're just going to take a quick pause and wait for the noise in the background to kind of dissipate.
But to get back to your point, the fact is this, that it's not about sort of, what I write. Right? I don't think that I pull my punches in what I write. It's much more a matter of, where you can go.
I'll tell you what.
Pardon me, there's a lot of shooting.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy.
So no, I don't hold back on what I write and what I say, but it's a matter of, what you can see and where you can go to report. So that's to say that, for example, if I'm somewhere where, for example, in other places I've reported, whether that's Iraq, elsewhere, right? There is a certain margin of safety you can feel, and you can act within that margin. But in others, you don't really feel that, right? And here, I must say, whether that's on the Israel-Lebanon border, whether that's in Gaza, whether that's elsewhere, you do feel that if you approach the front line, you are definitely a target, right? That's really the key point. It's where you feel like you're a target. And in other places, again, you take the risk because you assume that you're not a target, but in some places, you really feel that it's unsafe.
Tell me where you felt that specifically.
So, for example, in Ukraine, to an extent, I felt that. I've certainly felt that in Gaza in the past, right, where you approach the front line of a certain area and you can feel that it just, no one cares if you're a journalist or not. It really is irrelevant, right? Of course, if there's artillery can't tell if you have a press vest or not, and it doesn't care, right? So that's always an issue, of course. But, really, the most you would feel this, especially, is in places like Jerusalem, right, in places on the, on the Israeli-Lebanese border. These places you are not, it doesn't matter who you are, really. And your skin color marks you out as an Arab, especially, and that's the problem. So you have to act accordingly.
Right. And we have to mention as well that this is, people that have to live there are going through this, all the time. They can constantly fall victim to stray gunfire, and just having to hear what we're hearing right now in the background. And as you said, this is only for a funeral. It's still quite unnerving to constantly hear live gunfire. Let me turn to let me turn to Yusuf and ask you if you worry, Yusuf, working as a journalist, that fewer and fewer people will want to do this crucial work, especially in Palestine, where it needs to be known so desperately. If it's shown over and over again that there is no accountability if journalists are killed or injured.
Well, Palestinian journalists, they take the necessary precautions. They don't put themselves in danger. So what I mean is that we tend not to approach the border fence close to the proximity of the presence of Israeli soldiers. But if you are even hiding, or if you are in your own office, you don't know if a shell will hit your office or if there is an airstrike nearby. So we just work and we don't know what's going to happen to us. But I don't think Palestinian journalists, they will just be terrorized and just stop reporting. I think this will not happen. Actually, on the contrary, there is more interest to study journalism at the universities of Gaza. There are so many young people who would like to become journalists to report what's going on. I would like also to mention that even foreign journalists, they were killed in Gaza. Jonathan Mirror, a British journalist who was killed by Israeli gunfire in early 2004, I think. And also our colleague Fadel Shana'a, who was killed by an Israeli tank in the central Gaza Strip. He was working with Reuters, and his jeep is still on display in the British Imperial War Museum in London.
Wow, okay.